Hi, everybody, and welcome to this Farbrengen, as we Farbrengen about the first Sicha Bamidbar, Alef, and Likkutei Gimel. My name is Levi Avtzon. I live in Johannesburg. I'm a shliach. I'm a rabbi in the shul here in Johannesburg. And together with me is my younger brother, not my nephew and not my son, Shmuly Avtzon,
rubbing it in.
the director of Sichos in English, and a mashpia in 770, amongst many other titles. And we're going to start with the Farbrengen about the Sicha, but I think the first thing that I'm going to ask Shmuly is if you could give some context, first of all, to the Sefer. We just started a new Sefer in Project Likkutei Sichos, Likkutei Gimel, and a bit of context to the Sicha, when it was said, and the Alum.
Right. So I won't get so much into the Teichen and the build-up of the Sicha. I'm assuming many of the people watching it have learned the Sicha, and this is sort of a unwinding at the end of the week, taking it from the intricate details of the Shilas and answers in the Rashi Sicha, and trying to come to Shabbos with something mashastic, practical, something to think about in going ahead with their lives. Just some interesting points. We just started Likkutei Gimel of Likkutei Sichos. Likkutei Gimel is obviously a chelik of Chumash Bamidbar. Just a few interesting points. Likkutei Gimel is actually a krach that the Rebbe handed out personally. I don't know how many there are. I know Likkutei Alef the Rebbe gave out to the Shluchim Tashlam Vav. Likkutei Gimel the Rebbe gave out to the Shluchim. The Shluchim Teretz Yisrael. In Tashlam Ches, there were 3 kvutzos of Shluchim Teretz Yisrael. The Rebbe sent 1 kvutzah Lamed Vav, 1 kvutzah Lamed Zayin, 1 kvutzah Lamed Ches. This was the last kvutzah. They would give them a Likkutei Gimel. So, and this is the first Sicha in Likkutei Gimel. Something interesting about this Sicha, and it caught my attention when I was looking in the Ha'ara 33, speaks about a question and answer in Yigeres Tshuva, and obviously it was interesting, like, how did Yigeres Tshuva enter this intricate Rashi Sicha? So I looked at the Farbrengen, and in general, it's very interesting to always look up the Farbrengen. You see a lot of points that didn't go into the Muga, and you see a lot of background and context on why the Sicha was said. But the Rebbe Chlal, it's all Torah Schayim. It's a living Torah. It's dynamic. It's not just a random Rashi and a random Yigeres Tshuva and a Birkei Avos and Likkutei Levi Yitzchak, as the Rebbe say there. Everything comes together. It's part of life. But here in this Farbrengen, I think he sees a little more than other places. They mamish all come together. I'm just going to quote a little from the Farbrengen. What's going on here is that this was a Rashi Sicha. That's the Sicha in the Pnim. And on the bottom wasn't part of the Rashi Sicha. It was the Yigeres Tshuva Sicha. From, I think, Tashon Lamed, the Rebbe started from Tashon Late Chav Ches, early Chav Tes. For the next few years, the Rebbe taught by every Farbrengen a part of the Yigeres Tshuva. In the middle, the Rebbe's father's ha'aris that he wrote on the Yigeres Tshuva were redeemed, came here. And then the Rebbe started teaching every week. The Rebbe went through all the ha'aris of the Rebbe's father on Yigeres Tshuva. Those sichas were edited in later years, and that's where we have all the sichas in the back of Likkutei Test and Likkutei Test sichas on Yigeres Tshuva, on Likkutei Levi Yitzchak on Yigeres Tshuva. But this on Yigeres Tshuva, the Rebbe basically went through the entire Yigeres Tshuva. You almost can't go by a line or two without the Rebbe explaining what's going on. If we would have this on the entire Tanya, it would be unbelievable. We had this on the Yigeres Tshuva. And the Rebbe went all the say there. And the Rebbe was holding Perek Yud Alef, the Yigeres Tshuva, and the Rebbe was learning that word in Yigeres Tshuva, Chatasi Negdi Samid. What's the pshat? That you shouldn't constantly be thinking about the Chatay. You can't live that way. It has to be in your mind, but minegdi mirachik. The Rashi of that Farbrengen is about mineged tzavayom el yachnu. The Rashi on Parshas Bamidbar. But more than that, so when the Rebbe was saying that, the Rebbe started, I'm just getting into that Sicha. After the Maimer, when the Rebbe starts going into the Rashis, etc.
When was the Farbrengen?
The Farbrengen Parshas Bamidbar Tafshin Lamed. So from our Mamish 50 years ago. Right? It's Farbrengen Mamish 50 years ago. Yeah.
Quite a milestone.
Yeah. And so in general, there would be the Farbrengen till the Maimer and the Farbrengen after the Maimer. Farbrengen till the Maimer, They would speak about Yom Diyoima, what the day is, what's special, Shmuly, Bamidbar, then would be the Maimer, and then be the questions on Rashi, questions on Igeres Tshuva, questions on Pirkei Avos, depending on the time of the year. Later were questions on Rambam after Rambam joined. So the Rebbe said like this, that in the Maimer, the Rebbe mentioned the pasuk Mineged Saviv Lo Moed Yachnu. The Rebbe says it's important to emphasize. So it started in the Maimer. The Rebbe already mentioned this in the Maimer. The Maimer is Dibra Maskil Ishal Tig Boy Boisis the Beis Avos. The year the Rebbe mentioned the pasuk. The Rebbe said we're going to take our Rashi that I mentioned in the Maimer and we'll discuss this Rashi. And we'll talk about what it speaks about in Igeres Tshuva Perak Yud Aleph Mineged Saviv Lo Moed Yachnu V'Pirish Rashi. Right? That's Igeres Tshuva that I was speaking about. And the Rebbe said, and Mistami, you can also find something in Perak Vav, Pirkei Avos, also emphasis to Talmud them. But Paul, the Rebbe didn't discuss it directly on Mineged in Pirkei Avos. Over here, the Ramban, they write that maybe the Rebbe meant the pasuk in Neged, Skein of Kavod, that's mentioned in Yishnaches. Okay. You don't have to go right there. There's Alter Rebbe brings the Rashi here. The Alter Rebbe discusses the Neged over here, this Rashi. That's what the Alter Rebbe discusses. The Paul, the Rebbe discusses a different Pirkei Avos. The Pirkei Avos of Oilem Labrias made by Nashal Torah, but then later on the Rebbe connected their Pirkei Avos also to this Rashi and to this Igeres Tshuva, as we'll discuss. When we get to the Hira here in the Sicha, which in the edited version is actually written very, very bekitzer relatively. I think like many of the Hiras in these volumes, in general the Hiras are at the end of the Sicha, but sometimes they're written a little more, sometimes they're written a little more, just a few words. And the Rebbe connected the Pirkei Avos as well. And then the Rebbe connected it to a dinner that was taking place that Motzei Shabbos for Temchet Mimim, for Yeshiva. So the current event is also connected. So everything it's all, right? That's Torah. Torah, the Dipterois and the Yisraelis of the Belt. So there's an event going on. It's all connected. Now, apropos that, so we're talking about the Sicha, and we're learning it now. And Baruch Hashem, there's thousands of people learning. But also the timing and the time that we're in this world now is a very interesting situation. And I think that there's a lot of points here in the Sicha that can resonate with us, even though most of it is a intricate Rashi Sicha with all kinds of questions and Shul Mikra and et cetera, But I would say if you talk about the general idea of what the Sicha is discussing, the Sicha sort of challenges the boundaries between closeness and distance. What's close? What's far? When you look at what's the main point of the Sicha, I would say it all sort of summed up in this keta in Sif Gimel. Halfway through Sif Gimel, Rashi is trying to bring out 2 points. Right? Because the question was, how B'chlal do, why B'chlal do we think Mineged is Mirachik? Why is it far? But it's only 2,000 Amma, right? That's a discussion in the Sicha. And the way that Rabbi puts it is that Rashi is bringing out 2 points. On the one hand, when the Rashi brings that the pasuk, when it says Mineged, it means that the Yidden should be further away from the Mishkan, right? Just to basically what the Sicha is speaking about. It's speaking about where the Yidden encamped around the Mishkan in the Midbar. So you had the Mishkan. Around the Mishkan was Moshe, Aaron, and the Levi, right around. And then around them was Machne Yisrael. But we say that Mineged Yachnu Bnei Yisrael, Mineged Saviv Lo Yachnu, is here to tell us that it's not enough that they're right out, because you could say there's Moshe, Aaron, and Levi. Levi weren't that big at that time. And the Kiyah can be right behind them. No, there has to be space. Create space. Create distance between Machne and Levi and the Mishkan right in front of them, and then the Yidden behind. So we say it has to be space, you have to be backed up. But then on the flip side, Baines, don't be too far back. Be far, but not too far.
Let me interrupt for a second. A bit of a spitz word. I don't know spitz. It just hit me. I grew up Lubavitch. I always heard Machne Yisrael, one of the first moistes that ever opened. And I'm learning the Sicha, and I'm suddenly like, Machne Yisrael. I never actually put 2 and 2 together, that Machne Yisrael, which is the Rebbe's moised. One of the 3 first moistes, Machne Yisrael, Megizani Chinuch, Kahas, Likkutei is named after this, right?
You're saying that the three moistus are connected, Machan Yisrael.
I didn't say that, but it's interesting that like this whole Sicha is about Machan Yisrael, and Machan Yisrael is like a very personal thing for Rebbe. I mean, that from all the names Rebbe could choose for his moisid, like Machan Yisrael, it's a very interesting definition.
Yeah, or the way the Rebbe wrote it, when the Rebbe came, the Friedrich Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe gave it over to the Rebbe. This was the Rebbe's thing. This is what the Veda was.
And it's interesting because the whole Sicha is about the fact that the Yidden can't be too far from Moshe Rabbeinu because Moshe lived on the east, which is the entrance of the Mishkan, so the Yidden can't be more than 2,000 amas, and they have to be able to access. And because there was on the east side of the Mishkan, the Mizrach, there was very little people living there, just Moshe and Aaron and the families. So you couldn't have more than 2,000 amas from the Mishkan because then there would be a problem of Tchum Shabbos. So the other sides you couldn't have. Likkutei Yesh Lemer, even though the Rebbe doesn't say it, it's not only that they have to be close to the Mishkan, they have to be close to the Rebbe. In other words, it's not.
I think I don't have to go to. I think in the Farbrengen there was a certain mashmas. The Rebbe speaks about Moshe as well. There's a certain more emphasis on Moshe. That's not in here. But yeah, definitely. But the Rebbe does discuss there, as you're already bringing it up. So the Rebbe does discuss there. So like I mentioned, there was a dinner, right then for the yeshiva. So after the Rebbe, so first will be the questions, right? There will be questions on Rashi, questions on Gershon, question of Pirkei Avos, then a Sicha on general topics, then the Yehudi, etc. And then the Rebbe gives an explanation. The Rebbe would answer when he gets to the Rashi, when he gets to the Gershon Shabbat. So the Rebbe there mentions. A second to find it. Farbrengen even spoke about that Agudas Rabbanim said that on Chag Shavuos they should speak in the shuls about different inyanim. So the Rebbe said should be machres b'kol gadol, that Basko machrezes by meres oilam lebrias me'al boina shel Torah, we should be mevagish Torah, etc. Yeah, remember this is a end of Tavshan Lamed. Mil Yehudi was very strong then, etc. Anyway, so over here by the end. Yeah, there was a Chanukas Abayis. Also, it wasn't a dinner, so it was a Chanukas Abayis of Timchei Tmimim.
It's not sure. On that context, it's also the year of Sefer Torah.
I'm not sure which year that was, but maybe what was something meant for Indim then, yeah.
It's like that year is also Sefer Torah Shal Mashiach. It's also Estim Shana of the Rebbe's Nasias. Like there's a lot of context to what's going on over there, and and it's quite, to understand the Sicha in the whole context of that year, and especially that we're in 50 years, I think is quite motivating. 1 second, I can't unmute you. You have to unmute yourself. I'm trying to unmute you. Yeah, sorry.
You have to unmute yourself on the Kudah. So basically, everybody speaks about that. There's people can't be learning Torah the entire time. Most people, right? Most people have to actually go out here to the world and ton and mischar. But at the same time, that's learning Torah. That's the Iker. That's to learn Torah. So how is it shy to do that? So the Rebbe brings Rashi. Moshe, Aaron, Ubanav, Alabim, Chayim, Mesamachloi. There are mimutzoim in between the oil moyed, which is the Mishkan Eids where the Torah is, and the average Machni Yisrael, people out there running their lives. There's the middle ground, the Leviim, and we know the Leviim, they were chosen to be in the oil moyed the entire time, and they are mechaber. They connect in with the oil moyed. And they are poil that even when they're far away from the oil moed, are still connected to the oil moed. That's the Bati Midrashes that make the Loim de Torah and the Bati Pisias that are Maimed Oivdi Hashem Abovir.
Which is interesting. Interesting that the second Sicha that we learned in this week's project with the Sichos, Bamidbar base, the whole Likkutei of the Sicha is that the Leviim are the Shluchim of
yes. That's and the Rebbe speaks about it here as well. The Rebbe speaks about it by this Sicha as well. And there was connecting the Hanukkah Sabayis. They have to bring more money, and we have to bring more Talmidim into the yeshiva, more Talmidim Bekamos, so we should say Tzarli Hamakim and Be'echos. There's many levels of limited Torah.
Then he tells the Bachrim not to blame on Alef the problems of yeshiva. Ultimately, what builds
and the Talmidim are the ones that build the yeshiva. Stop blaming the Mashpim Club. This was one of the things that the Rebbe, every few years looks like there was another crisis going on in yeshiva.
Yeah, it's a bit personal for the two of us.
Both sides. Yeah. Yeah, he was definitely very proud of it. There's a lot of interesting oisias here. But you see there, the Rebbe looks at it, practically, there's the Mishkan, there's the Machne Yisrael, which is Klal Yisrael, and then there are Moshe Aaron and the Levim, and that's the Yeshiva Bachrim, the Bachrim that they are Taket, and as we'll discuss right there are going to be those people that will stay around the Mishkan. There are people that are sitting in the assembly, they're not going anywhere else. Well, these days it's on the There still are a few of them. There are people that are sitting now. They're on the porches in the 70. They're chutzner outside. We'll figure something out. So there's definitely that relevance. That relevance here.
Okay, so let's move on from the context of the Sicha and where the Sicha was said. Obviously said, as we said, Bamidbar Tafshan Lamed. When you're going through the Sicha, it's the first time you look at the Sicha, it's a very technical Sicha, and the first time you look at the Hayra'ah, it also doesn't seem to be screaming out to you. You know, having just gone through Chelik Yud Beis before that, it's Hayra'ah that we've heard before. So the question is, when you're going through the Sicha, obviously, and you're trying to Farbrengen with it, what caught your attention? Was hat sich gehabt?
No, sag allein.
Okay, so I'll start from the end. I was telling you earlier that, like, by me, I was...
As you mentioned before, the cloud here on Zoom is that you have to unmute yourself. As long as you keep speaking.
Okay, so I'll say this.
L'chaim
v'livracha. I was going, just mamish a few minutes before we got online, I was going against over the Oisvav. The Hayra'ah l'kolecha v'echad sheperesh Rashi delan, the Hayra'ah to everyone from our Rashi. The demand from every Yid shall love.
So where are we? This is the end. The Sivav, yeah.
Yeah. Shall love loyrak lekayim is kol mitzvahs da'iraisa to rabbanim b'siyagim. Not only do you have to keep all the mitzvahs from the Torah, the rabbanim all the siyagim. Elo gam sheyu kol masech l'shem shemayim. But even more so that you have to have kol masech l'shem shemayim. But Oidye said, and more so, and the Rebbe references over here in the bottom, famous Sicha and Likkutei Sichos Chelik Gimel, b'chol zachecha de'eyu, which is a higher level than Chol Masech Yishamayim. Hainu shegam kol inyonei adashus, that all the inyonei adashus she'oisa that he does b'koil zman in all the time, and it ever highlights b'koil, which is interesting. Like, what's the b'koil zman? If you want to highlight them, just say kol inyonei adashus. Like, what's kol inyonei adashus? B'koil zman, all time, not only on Shabbos. Yuchadurim avodas Hashem. They have to be permeated with avodas Hashem. And the Rebbe says basically because the Yidden lived they had to live close to the Mishkan, not only on Shabbos, that they had an issue with Chumin, but during the whole week, even though technically there was no reason. Why? Because you have to be close, you have to be accessible to Kedusha on Shabbos, the 6 days of the week, the way you are on Shabbos. And there's many ways of unpacking those words. But when I just saw the words, Yuchadurim Avodas Hashem, I remember I learned in Eretz Yisrael in Tafshin Samach Gimel. And it was just after I think that Reuven Dunham passed away. I spent some time in Haifa that year. And whatever, I noticed that last week they Farbrengen about something he said as well. It's interesting. So one of the things he would often repeat, obviously it's not his words, but he kacht in it, is the words in Tanya. In Igeres HaKodesh, Chelik Beis. And on the bottom of page Kuf Yud Ches, the last line, halfway through the letter, the Rebbe says, Ach Loshen Avoda Einoi Neufel, the definition of Avoda only comes, I'm reading this actually from a Tanya the Rebbe gave me, Ella al Sha'adam Oiseb.
The green one or the blue one?
Blue one.
Blue. Blue was the second one, Nun Alef. It's Kislev, when's the blue? Should have the date in the front.
I actually still have the dollar inside, so I hope I never used it on Shabbos.
Has the date on the cover?
Chag HaGula Yitas Kislev Tavshin and Alef. Aboim Shalom L'Siyas Chakad Mushlita. So, what Lashon Avoida Einei Neifel Ela Al Davar Sha'adam Oiseh B'Yitzuma, that the definition of Avoida Einei Neifel, you'll never use the Lashon of Avoida only on something that Adam Oiseh B'Yitzuma Nega Teva Nafshay, in tremendous effort against the nature of your nefesh, like shemevatel tiva yitzayim mipnei ratzon elyon baruch hu, and your mevatel, you break your teva and your ratzon for the ratzon elyon baruch hu. In other words, we often talk about avodah and talk about avodas Hashem, and serving Eved Hashem. And I remember when the first time I read the way, obviously, like you do chitas every single year, but if someone asked you to say where's the lashon elal ach lashon avodah and neifel, I wouldn't know. But he highlighted it in a way that, like, avodah literally means to overcome teva nafshe. Like, I remember the first time I learned, a bit of a tangent, but the first time I learned Kudus in Torah Chassidus, for those who get this Kislev, and one that gives a bunch of reasons why Chassidus came out. Obviously, there's the ultimate reason, Yechida, but one of the reasons at the beginning of Kudus in Torah Chassidus he gives is l'shanis teva midoisav v'midoisav ativim. You should change yourself. And often people will say, where's the relevance of Chassidus? And I know recently with Simon Jacobson and his past few years with his video, and with the competition every year to bring relevance, I think sometimes you just have to look in the oisius and say, like, yeah, avodah sounds like a very fancy word. Avodah means work on yourself. Avodah means overcome your teva. And I'll be honest, I think now in the time of Corona, and that's really where the Farbrengen is, the context of the Farbrengen, obviously. If I ask myself, if I'm going to come out of these 2-3 months and something in Teva Midaisav or Midaisav Ativim, I'm not going to get into the technicality difference, hasn't changed. I don't know, like... I've been asking myself, especially this week, everyone's saying... And
here I thought if you end up after these 2 months sane, it's already a man.
No, like everyone says, like, the world is going to change. And yeah, certain things, the world will change. But ultimately, certain deadheads have to take place. Whether it's deadheading what it means to be a father, whether deadheading what it means to be a husband, with the heading what it means to be a love in this kind of climate, something has to click and change and break yourself. I'm not sure if that's where the Sicha was going, but I saw those words, Chadurim Avodas Hashem, permeate Avodas Hashem, and that's what screamed to mind. Now, like, I remember there was a bacher, whatever, he was a bit, he wasn't 100%, but there was a bacher at a certain stage in my bachrim years. Like, he was doing a skafia and he took it like in a total extreme thing. He would eat, but then he would take the food out of his mouth, like a total mashigana, whatever. And the point is, as a young bacher, you're 14, 15, you're sitting in the sitta and you're hearing words like iskafia and isapche and avoida. And for you, all it means is that you're going to sit there convincing yourself that you're davening, not for a half an hour, but 35 minutes, the mamash tachsas kolas. At some stage, you wake up, what's avodas Hashem? Grow up. Get closer to the Mishkan. Get closer to Moshe Rabbeinu. Get closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Make sure that your week is not just you on the treadmill. Do something. Okay, ich habe schon genug gedarshan. Was hast du zu sagen?
Okay, now go on.
The point is that, like, each and every one of us in our lives, we can't just say that we're going to come out changed. We can't just say, wow, what you like. We've just been through something crazy. If you don't decide what you're going to change, it's not change. Change by osmosis is not change. Yeah, the world's going to change. Obviously, like after we come out of this, chances are next time you're going to come to your balabatim and say, come to a shir, they'll say, Rabbi, put it on Zoom. Certain things will change. But change that happens through osmosis is not avodah. Change that happens just because you're growing up is not avodah. Avodah literally means that to proactively change, not reactively change. We all grow up. I remember one time I was at a Farbrengen, and it was someone's gave him a lettuce. I don't remember who the mashpia was. It was a bit of a lettuce. And he says, L'chaim, l'chaim, you should grow up. So that's it. Atkan. L'chaim, you should grow up. You should grow up to be a chassid. You should grow up. That's the first thing of getting closer to the Mishkan, getting closer. And what's Mishkan mean? Allowing the Eibishter to reside in your heart. Shechina, to sheichen u'slabish, the whole basiligani, to come into you. It's about allowing the Eibishter to permeate you, to take you over, to become a little more, okay, I'm starting to darshan in a way that I'm not, that's okay. I'm going too far. Was sagst du?
That's what happens when you start Farbrengen at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so let's read a little more. Yeah, this is that's it. There are those. Most people are okay with this, but there are those that have a problem. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, for those times that we're davening and learning, which they are the Shabbos and Yom Tov of the weekday. And as the Rebbe went on, the Farbrengen is also in periods in life, times in life. In the Bachar Shayar, when you're in Yeshiva, Talmid Chacham, Mikri Shabbos, you're living in a world of Torah Tefillah, then you're you're on a high, you're on a spiritual high, that's your life. Your life is Avodas Hashem. That's where you challenge yourself. I mean, all your koiches are put in there. Your chesed, gvura, tiferes, your chacham midas, it's all in the context of Avodas Hashem. That's where your struggles are. That's where your successes are. That's where your whole life is. That's where your whole relationships is with Avodas Hashem. When I enter the weekday go for the times of working at the time in my life that I'm not in the base medrash, I'm not in the base knesses. How is such a thing shaykh?
Shmuly, was it Rebbe Rashab who said that I don't trust the Bachim?
Yeah. And this is signified by the Rebbe, by the Farbrengens, from the most geschmack in Yanim. Or obviously there's the actual toichem, there's the style. When the Rebbe spoke, it's in Yoni Avodas Hashem, very often, most of that was a conversation. Zachman and Tainet, aber sagt, Bamidbar, sagt, ich bin nicht shy, ich will Shabbos und Yom Tov, sagt, entfert mit ihm, aber Tainet, aber entfert mit ihm. There was this whole dialogue. The Rebbe's Farbrengens versus the other Rebbeim. We have the Sichos of Likkutei Rebbe, the Rebbe was saying, other Rebbeim, and before, there was a dialogue going on by the Farbrengen. You could see it very often. The Rebbe is the one having a conversation with the Likkutei Rebbe, and other Chassidim, and the Rebbe
and you
says
have it. The only time you have it by the Rebbe is Hamelech B'Msiba. The Rebbe saw this with the Likkutei Rebbe, but
right, and it was a very different style. I think it was very, very bekitzer. And Bachram had questions. They would go to one of the Chaver there, depending on what kind of question you had, who you asked, if the guy understand what you're asking, whatever. It was a whole lot of way to figure out who to ask which question. They understand Lamed Ches. They would ask the doctors. But it wasn't the Seder. It wasn't the Seder. Later on, the Mems built the whole Seder where the Farbrengen did become more interactive in a bit of a different way, where the Rashi Sichos, where they would sort of ask a question, leave it open, leave it hanging. Throughout the week, they would answer in the Koiftzim, and the Rebbe would address their answers, which obviously everyone always got wrong, and because it's not Shal Mikra. That speaks about this Sicha as well. We'll get to that. This Ben Chamish Mikra. And then even.
One thing, it came to my mind, you know that the Yosef Waldman, Alav Hashalom, was the big Rashi Sicha guy. And Baruch Hashem, we got to know him as kids. We davened in the shtibel. He lived on
what do we know? We grew up with him. Who was he? Well, he was a small Jew.
Things about him, like the Rebbe said that like he's the one that approved, like I don't know, there was certain expressions.
Yeah, a few times the Rebbe stopped the Rashi Sichos. And either stopped the Rashi Sichos or stopped giving out the Mar Mekoimis before. Like this is Bamidbar Tov Shalamid. This was a year earlier in Chavtes when the Rebbe said he's not going to give out the Mar Mekoimis anymore before the Rashi Sichos. It's not Lubavitch to say whoever source is going to be Lubavitch. It's a Litzvish Rosh Yeshiva saying to give Mar Mekoimis before the Shir Klali. Then he begged, and the Rebbe continued. But then in the later years, it sort of developed, and then became a seder that the Rebbe said, "You ask the questions. You ask the questions on Rashi. You find the Rashi's ask questions, and the Rebbe will address it." So there did start that dialogue. But in general, Farbrengen, the Rebbe spoke. That was good. The Rebbe But on the other hand, there was this dialogue. Kel deis havaya, that in a likus gufa there's tzvei deis, that's only das nachtin. The Rebbe, when the Rebbe would speak this kind of language, the Rebbe himself would have that conversation of a Rebbe and Chassid. There were times the Rebbe went even more. The Rebbe would chazer over Yechidus. Some of these are on tape. I don't remember, maybe even on video, or in the earlier years. Zarayim come into Tzamir and Yechidus, and he asked me, and I told him, and he said such a thing. The Rebbe would chazer over things. But even without that, so often, Zokmanem, over Tainit there was this whole dialogue, a whole conversation. And very often you read this, or you hear it, you watch it, and you mamish, it's like the Rebbe is speaking, and if your Nebuch and Nebuch Bahamis ever, Pashas here, in total bittul, but if something Nebuch Bahamis comes and says, and then a second later, kind of there, Zokmanem. So you have this dialogue, and that was a Sicha. The Rebbe is speaking to you. You're silent. The Rebbe is speaking to you. There's the Seichel Harav being mild of the Seichel HaTalmud and discussing, having a conversation with the Seichel HaTalmud. So it's a big shaila. Eichav shalakayim zayis. Let's be practical. It doesn't work that way. You can't ask someone as he's closing a deal, or he's running around and doing his groceries, or laundry, or taking out the garbage. Which today is all the same, because it's all about going down the same stairs and trying to lock yourself in the same room in the corner of your house. And you're saying that at that time, yeah, you'll read it, yeah.
Why was the machne only distant a payimam and not more? They should be able to come on Shabbos. And not only for that reason, it was not only on Shabbos but tamid, constantly. Even though the shaykhs, the issue of distance was only applicable for Shabbos and Yom Tov. Shemizeh them is that from here you learn that you learn the Torah Shamatzav K'Moishu b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov, that the matzah the way it is in Shabbos and Yom Tov nimshach mashpia gam b'shayim Hashana is mashpia on the other days of the year. V'akavana b'zeh, what do I mean? Shemadregas hakdusha she'odam oimed ba b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov, the level of kedusha that a person stands there in Shabbos and Yom Tov, nimsheches, it's pulled, v'noisenes koyach, which I guess is different. Nimsheches is like you actually bring it with you. In the sense, koyach is that it still stays where it is and gives you koyach. In the issues of weekdays, not just the days of the week, but the issues that you deal with during the week, throughout the year, you should be permeated avodas Hashem. Again, the same word, chodur avodas Hashem, what he used at the beginning of the page as well. Chodur, permeated. Yeah. How do you understand that? Practically, like you said, you're taking down the garbage. I don't know. You're figuring out your kid's iPad in online school. You just got back to get your antibodies. I don't know what. Like, what? The silence is the answer. That's
I think we discussed how to bring in Avodas Hashem. So let's go back a bit. It's going to be a bit more on the Pnim, or the earlier parts of the Sicha. It doesn't get so much into in Vav. Right? I'll take it sort of as a given. Machne Yisrael needs that distance, right? Why does it need that distance? And what's the reason we explained in Ois Gimel? Tamal ze moving with pashtus. The Rebbe says here that mineged has to mean a bit further than the way we're. In other words, because even without mineged, they weren't touching the Mishkan; they were behind Machne Leviyah. But mineged is pushing them even further back. What's the svar? What's the reason for this? What's time of dekra? Why is it being pushed further back? So moving with pashtus, and it's in the middle of Sif Gimel, the bottom of the first column. Became a Shekos with Fnez, well, yeah, Ketzev Aladas Me Yisrael. Again, repeat it, Rashi, means that Rashi, Vim Lavshi, Konsu Zor Mabidas, and Zu, yeah, Ketzev Cholo. The Chain Tzivak of this Baruch, she Rechiko Machni Yisrael, my Mishkan Harbe, the Harfik Gezer, of Shosh, Konsu Zor Miknezah Cholo. We're not allowed to go. Zarim, right, a foreigner, if you're not a Levi, a Kohen, you're not allowed to go into the Beis Hamikdash, into the Mishkan. So the distance is keep us far. It's very interesting, but what do you mean keep you far? What were the Yidden Mechlal doing in that area? If we're worried about, if you're not allowed to go into the Mishkan, so whatever. So make a chanoya, put the Mishkan wherever it is, and go live in Borough Park. Go whatever. Go to the city. I'm going upstate. You can't survive over there. Go upstate. Wait till Ad Yaber's out. What's the? It's all coming in context. What's the point? You're talking about people, and why are they going into the Mishkan? Because they want to go to the Mishkan, because that's where Yidden are supposed to be. Yidden are around the Mishkan. That's where Yidden are. It was very interesting. Aris, this is earlier in Sif Alef, Aris 17 and 18, where the Rebbe discusses that maybe it was much further. Why say that it was only Alpayim Amma? Why not further than that? So in midway Aris 17, Bepashtos Muvon should be came much for it in Shir was Torah, but it's Richim Lekarig as a Machna Lanish. All of them are basically make us for Shachanti B'Sicha at Kama She'efshe. Uvachi Yeshem Rachik Olav Leirachka, and then in Ara 18, Bepashtos Hayuroitli Yiskar Bla Mishkan. What's the context? What are we speaking about? Yid Shachanti B'Sicha. B'Sicha means the Beis Hamikdash, means the Mishkan, and also means B'Sicha Echad Ve'echad. That's where Yidden are. Yidden are around the Mishkan. That's the place of a Yid. A Yid is next to the Mishkan. There's in the Midbar. Al Pi Hashem Yachnu, Al Pi Hashem Yisrael. You go with the Mishkan. Then we come and say, no, around the Mishkan, but keep your distance. And if there will be, Yeh Ketzef.
I've never seen could literally mean that it was in the middle of Machane Yisrael. In other words, B'Soicham, that
within.
I'm hugged by Am Yisrael. In other words, I'm surrounded and I'm in the middle. Like almost the heart, the Kudat Tichain.
That's where you don't want to be. And we come and tell them, no, stand back. There's a fascinating Sicha. Actually, Sicha part of the Sicha also comes from the same Farbrengen, from Bamidbar Tafshin Lamed, earlier in the Farbrengen. I don't think this word comes from this Farbrengen, but the Sicha is a weight on them. And it's coming up now, we're coming to Chodesh Sivan. And there's Rosh Chodesh, Beis Sivan, Gimel Sivan, David Sivan. The Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch brings the whole thing, what happened on Rosh Chodesh, Beis Sivan, Rosh Chodesh, Beis, Gimel, David. It said Alter Rebbe it's a Sefer Halach. It's the same questions that we have to get to Rambam. It's not a history book. What's Alter Rebbe also giving us history? What happened on those 6 days? And the hero that Rebbe learns from there is Alter Rebbe. It's a halacha that every year when it comes to Matan Torah, we can't just jump into the Vav Sivan Matan Torah. There's the process, the same process that Yidden went through then. That's what happened on Alef, on Beis, on Gimel, on Dal, on Hey. We have to go through every single year. And what is that process? So different sichas ever discusses different things. You have the famous sicha of Rosh Chodesh Sivan, the bittul of Rosh Chodesh Sivan. When this sicha, the bigger discusses Beis and Gimel and Daled. When was that? When was Beis was Atem Til Nechas Kohen V'Gei Kodesh. Then came Hakbala. Then came Krisha. And the Rebbe speaks about them as 3 stages in a person's hachana from Matan Torah. How do you receive a Torah? What does it mean to be a Yid? So the first thing happens is Beis. Batem Til Nechas Kohen V'Gei Kodesh. It's a state of being. Every year, that's just who you are. The Etzem, the Shabbos Yisrael, you're chosen by the Eibishter, you're Yid. When a Yid hears such a thing, puts it on a high. You're Hechra mentioned. And it puts you in that state of mind, it puts you in that state of being. You live that way. I'm a Mishkan Yid. Who are we? We're koyanim. Amlechas koyin. Where's the place of the koyanim? In the Beis Hamikdash, in the Mishkan. That's who you are. After stage one, you get sort of that boost. It's not just some motivational. It's emes hazak. So what's the natural reaction? Where are you going to go? Forget about Elam Hazeh. Forget about there's no Masecha, there's no Drachecha. We're on Lechas Koyin V'Gei Kodesh. Comes the next stage when we say, Hagbil Asar B'Kidashte. Keep your distance. Being Magbil Asar. B'Kidashte. And that's what Kiddush. You have to remember, you're Lechas Koyin V'Gei Kodesh, but you can't be on the mountain. That's not your place. Moshe, Aaron, and Hanami, there were those that went up high. But for regular people, that is, we all have the times in our life when the Nitzitz Moshe and Aaron and the Levi shall call Echad, the Loimit Torah, the Bittul Dikah goes up. But in general, Hagnos Arbi Kidash, they stay back. This is not your place. Distance. Mineged Savim Moyed Yachnu. So then, okay, so the Iker is Gashmias. Let's go into Gashmias. Okay, Im Kvar Az Kvar. Ruchmias we can't have. I'll call upon him Gashmias.
And?
Mitzvah Sprisha. Your job is in Gashmias. Your job is Chol Masecha, Chol Brachecha. But L'Shem Shamayim. So, hey, you Prisha. Momi Chumri is. Don't, just because you're in Gashmias, but Misavim Lo'ayol Moyim, right? Yuchlu Lovay B'Shabbos. It's a Gashmias that comes, you're in Gashmias, but it's with you don't forget the purpose. You don't get consumed by materialism, by the Gashmias that you're dealing with. It's part of your Avodah. But the Nekuda is very interesting. Mahal, the 3 points, the 3 stages, and then you're ready for Matan Torah. But the Nekuda is that it all starts with. It starts with Adam Til Mechas Koyin V'Gei Kodesh. Mirat Begin Yidin. Machne Yisrael. Yeah, but it's Machne Yisrael. There are places around the mission. That's a natural place. It's Mekarav Esamachna. How you write to me is Karv La Mishkan. You just tell a person your job is Gashmis. No, first is your identity. Who's your identity? They're Bistu. Bisayin. What's your life? Your life is Ruchnias. Your life is Alikus. And that's where you are. That's where you want to be. You're right to me is Karva Mishkan. You're right to me is Karva Mishkan. Hagbil Esar V'Kidash. You have to go there to make a different. That's your job. There are the Tirasim Nasi Nikis and the different Sichos that it speaks about it here as well. There are those that are chosen to be the Tirasum Nasi, and they are those that enable us and give us the koyach that we can all, in our personal Masech and the Rachecha, have that connection. Besides for that, we all have to have on our own those moments. We have to have Levian moments, Moshe Aaron moments, Mishkan moments, Shabbos moments. They would say that the Lemitna Torah Loichle Haman. Only Loichle Haman. Why? Because they had no daigas. It sounds like a very inspiring message to tell people that are running and trying to make a parnasa. And they would say, many Farbrengens, that every person can create space and time in their day. Loichle Haman. You have no worries, no daigas. So with passion, like the Rebbe said, this is though in those years, whatever a phone meant, that this hour you don't pick up the phone. So imagine the distractions of the 70s, the phone.
Let me ask you practically. So what you're saying is times, but we just learned in the Sicha that the whole time.
Right. How do you make those times? How can your choil be Shabbosdik? It starts by having Shabbos moments. There was Taka Shabbos. And the matziv on Shabbos, Madreges like Kedusha, Shalom B'Shabbos v'Yom Tov, Nimsheches v'Nisenes Koyach v'Yom Yemei Zachel Shel Kol HaShonos, Gamaz v'Yechaber Avodas Hashem.
So, in simple English, I just came back to get my antibodies test. Just came back, and I have 3 pitzgalach jumping up and down. And this guy can't find his headphones, and this phone disappeared. What exactly is Avodas Hashem at that moment?
No.
Okay, so obviously, you have a typical thing that everybody says that when you're taking care of your kids, that's the b'tachton. Say that, but what's my intention? I'm right now dealing with a crisis. What's the difference between the Chaim Shmuly does it and a chassid?
The bias Yehudi classes that their wives got in high school and seminary are now all the men are buying into it as well.
Well, they have no choice.
We all became mothers.
Yeah, you always heard those drashas that the woman on Yom Kippur stays home and that's what Eibishter wants to. But ultimately, what's the difference between Chaim Yankel, who's taking care of his kids now, and a chassid that's taking care of his kids? What's the difference between doing it with Avodas Hashem? I mean, any decent parent with half a seichel and half a heart is taking care of their kids and trying to keep their kids sane. So how would you translate that a chassid does it? In other words, when you say that, Yechol Masecha, everybody lives this life. And most people are decent people. They're not terribly materialistic. They're taking care of their kids. They're taking care of their spouse. They're trying to be decent. Is it the quality of it different by a chassid?
So it's actually very interesting. We're getting into what it actually is. One of our supporters actually sponsored many Sifrei Chassidus in English, and in his Sichos, many were able to learn Chassidus. So I had a conversation with him, a long conversation. We're discussing different projects and ideas and what people need. And I spoke to him how did he come to Chabad? He didn't start off as Chabad. Now he's mamish a yid, a chassid, a kosher. And he says, obviously, a lot of interesting things, and the Chassidus Chabad, and the Rebbe, and the different moifsim, etc. He says, but one thing was the certain message I got from Chabad, especially from the Rebbe Sichos, that I just didn't hear anywhere. He was in yeshivas, he's out there, he listened to shiurim, he was following all kinds of Rabbi. He says, I never got this message. He said, yeah, people said it, there was sort of this lip service, but it was very clear there was this distinction between the Beis Medrash and the shul and leaving. Yiddishkeit is the shul. Yiddishkeit, you go to the Beis Medrash, you go to the morning minyan and a shir, and then you're good for the day. Then you do your thing, you make parnasa. Of course, the Torah says, "Kol shetasa," you have to do parnasa. So, but that's what life is. It's about making your parnasa, and then you come back and then you have your thing. And then again, there's mincha minchamayrev and the shir minchamayrev. He said it was always clear that this is out of the book. This is not Yiddishkeit. It's life. You're a yid and you're a human being. So the yid, you've shachris minchamayrev and the shiurim and whatever the shiurim are. And then there's being a human being and supporting your family, etc., etc. He says, and lepoil, when most people today are not yoshvi, most people are bali esek, so most of your time has nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. So Yiddishkeit became this sort of a nice boost, energy boost, different times of the day, social connection, times that you remember stuff as hecher. He says, then you learn the Rebbe Sichos. Like I said, every Sicha you learn in these krachim. It's all over. It's not just these krachim. This is one of the messages, especially in Likkutei Sichos. It's about your chayim. So first of all, very practical. Before we go into Grace Dargis, practically, what does it mean? Right? It's from the Rambam. So in the Rambam, it's brought as sort of as one thing. That Kol Masech Al Shem Shemayim, as the pasuk says, B'chol D'Rechecha De'eyu. It's the makir of that. Where the Rebbe gets split into two ifanim in Chassidus, and emphasis something I think in Chelik Yud, even in the Chol D'Rechecha De'eyu, there's a few ifanim. It's a whole big deal. But with Pashtus, Kol Masech Al Shem Shemayim, as explained in the Sichos, Kol Masech Al Shem Shemayim means when you do things, you're doing it l'shem Shemayim. What your polis are you're doing your polis. You do whatever you have to do. But you're doing it for a purpose. You're conscious of a higher purpose. Why are you doing it? Make money, give tzedakah.
So I'll give you an example of how it played out. I remember before I was getting married, one of my chaverim, he's a shliach in Canada now. Didn't grow up together, but we met later on. Tells me, he says, Levi, you're getting married because you think, you found your bashert and you're going to take care of her and you're going to love her and everything will be fantastic. Says ultimately you should love marriage more than you love your wife. And like, it sounded very abstract. So what's that do? So he says, ultimately, if it's about
so you can't give marriage tips if it doesn't sound quirky. You know, it has to be
100%. It's like, but from
doesn't have to mean anything.
And all the chachmas I heard, I only remember one joke someone told me. He said marriage is two people solving problems that had they never married would have never been created. And the other, and this guy, and his nikuda was, he says, you're getting married, Take, you want to be with this person, but you're getting married because the Eibishter says, believes in the institution of marriage, not believes, created it. And you're going to build a bayis nema b'Yisrael. And that, in other words, yes, it sounds very ruchnis, but ultimately, you both have to be passionate about marriage. The ideal within this is not that I like you, because what happens if I don't like you at a certain moment? The ideal is marriage. And same thing with kids. Like for me, it became very clear. Baruch Hashem, that Rebbe encouraged the soul to have many kindlech as much as we can, and a little more. And you often talk to people who had children, just whatever, because that's what people do, biology, or just I want to share, etc. And you sometimes see that just the way we look at our kids, the reason we had our kids, is a whole different thing. In other words, so we're both taking care of the kids. Chaim Yankel and me, we're both taking care of the kids, putting an iPad on them. But for me, my kid is not because, some shagasa perpetuating species. It's not because, I want to have people in the house and I want to express my love. No, it's my tafkid, it's my role. In other words, I think one of the big things that Rebbe did, specifically in that area of having children, which is a big revolution in the MEMS, and I know Tati, he gave a kunthis of it in the early 80s, was a big, big topic. Is that the Rebbe Pasha changed why you have a child? You gave it clarity. You gave them, obviously everybody always did it. It's a mitzvah through the vu. So much more than that. It's your chrayus to push it, first of all, to bring Mashiach, to help another yid be able to yimamala the tafkid, to give them the shama an opportunity to be able to do Torah mitzvahs. It's an obligation, not just a mitzvah. It's a moral imperative. It's your responsibility. So I would say then not only is it in the kavanah that you do in the moment, I would agree with you, but I would say even more that the whole reality I'm living in, the marriage I'm within, the children I'm within, the life I'm within is based on choices. L'shem shamayim. In other words,
in this case, you might already be entering the Ehu zone.
Explain.
Meaning, l'shem shamayim is sort of what you're doing is pretty much you're doing the same as somebody else. There's a kavanah that it's being done for. The Ehu is you sort of permeate this reality with kedusha. You're bringing kedusha every single moment. You're experiencing kedusha the whole regular. Just on basic levels, you have a guy going out to business, and he's constantly looking. Every new relationship that he meets, every person that he sees, every new client becomes a davar kaddish, right? There's a holy experience. There's a conversation. There's a hafetza involved. On a much greater level, you have to get a shliach. A shliach take. That's what happens. What is your average meal?
Very interesting. I was actually thinking as you were talking. I one time spoke to one of my colleagues, Rav over here in South Africa. I was very close to him, not a chassid, but an erlechem. And he tells me, I was telling him I'm inviting a certain fellow over for Friday nights. So he says, do you see in the guy potential to become frum? So listen, every yid has potential, but I don't see it happening up in Teva anytime soon. So why are you inviting him? He says, me and my wife made a policy. If we invited somebody once and we didn't see growth in Avodas Hashem, we didn't see the person becoming more frum, we don't invite them anymore. We're not wasting our meals. I thought to myself, I said, chassid, again, it's not about bashing the other side, it's about the contrast. You wouldn't think like that. I never asked myself before I invite somebody, if what's the intention? So again, it brings up the same point. The guy sitting at the meal by that chevraman, And the whole time, the host, the intention, there's an agenda. I'm going to make you another one. Gosh, sorry I have to bring this up. There was a Shweki song that came out a bunch of years ago from an organization that does cure. Truth is, it's all over YouTube. It's Ura. And they gave out a song. And it was 3 stanzas to the song. The first stanza is about a wife who misses her husband, but she knows that because he passed away, and she knows one day she'll be at peace with him again. And the next one is a mother who has a disabled child, but she knows that in the next world, the kid will be at peace. Then the third part of the question is, but what about all the Yidden that are not Shemet Torah mitzvahs? Who's going to make sure they get into Gan Eden? So it's our job to bring them into Gan Eden. You could go it like whatever. I'm being much less patronizing than the song is. Thought to myself, by the Shalom, how condescending could you be? And again, so it's 2 Shabbos meals. Chances are the Divrei Torah by his meal and by my meal are not that different. As in Zmiris, he's saying Dvar Torahs. He might even be saying a word that he heard that, the Derech, what's it called? The Derech Ma'aver came from Lubavitch. But ultimately, the whole meal over there is what? Is me taking you to Gan Eden. And when the Shliach's doing a meal, what's my intention? Obviously so. So again, like you're saying, the B'chol V'checha De'eyu, like that's what Shlichus does. It gives, and not a Shlichus if you're a Shliach. If you buy into the ideal of Shlichus, if you buy into the way that Rebbe sees another Yid, everything you do has an underlying different fundamental. And for me, that was like the contrast. So I was like, what do you mean? Like, I remember one time I actually asked Rabbi Lipsker here in South Africa, the head Shliach. I said, if you were given 5 minutes with a Yid, what would you do? And you know that this Yid is never going to see another Yid again. What would you do? So like some Yidden would sit there saying, I'm going to spend the 5 minutes convincing you there's an Eibishter. Some people would say, I would teach you Chveis the halachas of a Tfilas HaDerech, whatever, like, something technical. So I said, L'chud, I would put on film with him, right? He says, no, I would give him a meal. And if I had a few seconds extra, I would put on film with him. And obviously, like, there's context to everything, but for me, it made an impression. In other words, the Baal Shem Tov, even it says in the Sefer HaZechronis that the Baal Shem Tov started off by first taking care of the Gashmius of Yidden, and then the Ruchnius, and the Alter Rebbe repeated the same pattern. In other words, what the Rebbe is saying is have a Shabbos perspective, have a Mashiach perspective. And have a Mashiach perspective is Pashat see the world the way the Rebbe sees it. And I think that's the gift. Like, and I've said it to my Mekuravim, and we both grew up in Oli Torah Chai. And at least growing up.
You grew up in Oli Torah? I'm saying that.
So there's the famous thing you have to say, because, despite, whatever, the whole Nekudah. But the point is, I always say that even though when I was a kid, I resented maybe the world of no limudei chol, and whatever the time we grew up in, it was poskim tamas. It was a hectic time. Ultimately, when it comes a time like Corona, or it comes a time that each and every one of us have had struggles in our life, and you tap into the likus b'pshitos elemus b'schachus that the Rebbe gave you, and the chinuch al Taras HaKodesh gives you, you see that you're under, not because you did anything, simply your underlying principles of life are different. In other words, how you see the world affects how you live in this world. And I think the first thing about bringing Shabbos into the weekday is seeing the world through the perspective of Shabbos, seeing reality. Like, and now you see, Pasha, in times of Corona, or whether Chas V'Shalom you lose a loved one or whatever, you see that the Chassidus that gives you, it's not just like a boost, as you said. It's not a fluffy, motivational, yes, you can nonsense. The whole fundamental underlying building block of who you are.
It goes into many different areas. In general, in the Sichos, that brings it, it's actually from Samach Vav. The two avodas are sourced in 2 ways of understanding the tzimtzum. Tzimtzum mishvila giloy, or tzimtzum tzerich atzmai. Meaning is the whole part of the tzimtzum, that through the tzimtzum we're able to have a greater gilulikus afterwards, or the tzimtzum itself is an expression of the atzmus of the Eibishter, of the Helam Atzmi. We're going to get into technicalities, that nekuda. And so many areas in life, and so kol masecha is the tzimtzum, it's kashmias. L'shem shamayim, it will bring you to greater heights. Right? Make more money, we can build greater yeshivas, we can learn more Torah, etc., etc. Kol rechecha da'eyu is, this is it. The Welt is alikus is Welt. This itself, I experience alikus, I see alikus in the Welt, I see Ashkacha Pratis, etc., on many different lefanim, in different ways. And same with different things go on. So let's say this time that we're in now, we're sure the world's on a standstill, and there's this tzimtzum. There's a complete tzimtzum, contraction of light, contraction of everything. Everything has just been contracted and restricted. And there is this sprach, and that itself is also a sprach of Chassidus, that will come out of this much greater, much more amazing, and we, the other guys are just, we should be able to go back to shul. And Baruch Hashem, now the shuls are open or not open, they're somewhere opening. Samach Be'erli Beis Hashem Neilech, which 100%. Where someone that's not excited to go back to shul, it's not only because they have this hechere darg. The person could be the person not interested in, they're doing just fine at home. And not everyone that's happy going back to shul is so much about shul as much as it's having Pasha Klal Yisrael hanging out together. It's very gishmak. But going back to shul, is that the whole deal? Right? So we're talking about no much greater and the ultimate greatness, ultimate shleimus, Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu. And even the last moments of Golos, the higher level, you can see a lot of interesting new things are coming out, and it's going to be a new world, new reality. But all stuff, all that is all still in the context of Tzimtzum B'Shvil Gilur. It's interesting in the Sicha, I think the last edit of Sicha, Chav Zayin Adar, Tavshin Nun, the Rebbe says that these two inyanim are Chavav and Chav Zayin. Chavav Adar, Chav Zayin Adar. Chavav Adar is Tzimtzum L'Tzeira Gilui, and Chavav is Shem Avaya, so it's before Gilui. And Chav Zayin is Zoch. Zoch is the Sichos, that the Choshech itself, Choshech Atzmei Yoyer. So Choshech Atzmei Yoyer is then, besides for, and the Rebbe Taka says, the first has come Kol Masecha. Someone that jumps straight to B'chol Rechecha before Kol Masecha, right? That's like sort of, it's like going to Hagbala, it's like Hagbala without Prisha, or Hagbala without Matan Til Mechas Kenim B'Ei Kodesh. You're still enjoying Elam Hazeh. You're not doing Kol Rechecha. Your first way has to be Kol Masecha. Even Kol Masecha has to come after Torah Mitzvahs. Your place is in the base medrash. You're forced out. You're leaving the base medrash. And then comes the Chol Rechecha, where the Tzimtzum itself, in other words, this experience itself that we're going through right now creates a Gilui Etzem HaNefesh. You reach into inner depths. This itself brings out a much deeper part of a person, a much deeper relationships, a much deeper shaykhs to Yiddishkeit. Not only where it will lead to once we open up. That's for the Gilui when we open up. In the Choshech itself, I know we're different places in the world, and different places there are different stages. Some are reopening, some are starting, some are already in other in second waves. In the Choshech itself, in the Drachecha, what do you find there? As people are, and I think that itself you see the amount of and here itself, now people learning the Sichos, and Dafke during this time became such a motivator, and these shiur and Farbrengen, it's being at home and being this experience is the B'chol Rechecha Day. Even though this hour itself is the hour of Shabbos. It's the hour of leaving that a bit. But then it's in how you deal with your kids. Now the line between Choshech and Oyer and you're dealing with your kids is their school. So what are you fixing? You're fixing them, their learning, is their trouble, and is the meals, and Klaus, out. All the lines have been, there's very little distance between things lately. The shul is your house, and
I just want to
and everyone in their personal lives as well. We all have, this is obviously on a collective level, this is Choshech. We all have that times of Choshech and times of Oyer, times of Masecha and Rechecha. There is this, and there's this hope that we get, focusing on the good, focusing on the times that we'll get out, and it just, we can get over it. But then there's more than that. This anaftabi itself can be the deepest experience and the deepest connection, the relationship with Eibush, and the deepest avodas Hashem that a person can reach relative to Torah and Tefillah. So it's all in the thought of the Torah and Tefillah.
So I want to say like this, that obviously we're coming towards the end of the Farbrengen. Neistin Kovid Lachsanya, that I don't think in my lifetime I went cover to cover of Likkutei Sichos of specific chelik. I did Alef to Dalet, but in a short amount of time. And if I would ever do a chelik of Likkutei Sichos, it wouldn't have been chelik Yud Beis. Like those kind of sichos are, they're tough. They're
even though it's the smallest chelik.
Yeah, it's a hard chelik. It's a hard chelik that we just finished, and we're going into another one. And if someone would tell you that Tafshin Pei, the chayes of Lubavitch would be Likkutei Sichos across the board, I think it's moedadik. And I sometimes actually think to myself, I say, thousands of us every single week are sitting and learning 2 or 3 sichos, all the same sichos together, tens of shiurim on the internet, hundreds of shiurim all around the world, chavadusas. A bunch of regular guys decided to bring Shabbos into the weekday, and Prushit gave a koch, and now Likkutei Sichos is being redesigned. I see the Hafad Lapot Sichos is giving out, it's more clearer print now, and it's unbelievable. I mean, if there's ever a symptom of bringing Shabbos into the weekday, this is what we're doing. I mean, we're sitting over here in the middle of Corona, in the middle of the night, on Farbrengen about a Sicha and chelik Yud Beis. When was the last time anybody sat, obviously it was last week and 2 weeks ago, I'm saying, but when in the last 30 years did anybody sit down, and I saw last week that 1,000 people tuning in, hundreds of people coming and saying, let's koch in a Sicha of chelik Yud Beis, chelik Yud Gimel. And I think it's an incredible Ashkocha Pradesh to talk, it's the 50th year, but I think that Project Likkutei Sichos is the perfect example of what it means to bring Shabbos into the weekday. It's gotten me, I've never had such a kvias. Every single week, at least 2 sichos of the Rebbe, non-stop. And you go through a pattern, because when you go through a sefer, you see a pattern of a style. It's not like, okay, every week you go through Likkutei Sichos Parshas and you start choosing a random sicha. And I think it's nice and covered Lachsanya to give an incredible Yashikoyach to the Chevra that built this up and to the Chevra that keep on making this. I think this is mind-blowing, really. And also to you, I know that it's a bit subjective and biased, but obviously Sichos in English, Tati started it, and you continued. You gave out Likkutei Sichos in English, which was definitely a big impetus in this project, and Baruch Hashem getting involved in Project Likkutei Sichos. So just want to say Kol Achai, that that we know that the Rebbe had incredible nachas ruach when he saw people koching in the Sichos, and the opposite when the opposite. And I can't imagine that the Rebbe has had more nachas in the last 30 years than to see a worldwide collective effort of learning Sichos. And yes, there's all the projects going on in Achdus and this and that, but I think the first project that really brought us all together, just before Corona started, is this project Likkutei Sichos. And I think it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Any final thoughts on that?
100%. You said it all. You said it all. Achdus comes through the Nasi, and Achdus comes through Torah. That's how Achdus happens. Well, I'm not going to get into the whole Achdus, the entire Achdus discussion.
There's nothing wrong with Achdus. Nothing wrong with Achdus. Let's agree on that.
Achdus is good. Achdus is good. No, I'm saying sometimes Achdus can become a stifling, a crushing Achdus. You're sort of you're trying to and when Achdus comes through Torah, then for care, Achdus and individuality, not only they coincide. It's that's what Torah is. Torah, what's happening? You have many shiurim, you have discussions, you have forums, people debating. The Achdus is about everyone using their koyach and their style and their oifen and their havana. That's what the Achdus is. And besides for other reasons, that's one of the reasons why true Achdus is through Torah, because it's an Achdus that Taka brings people. Not that it shuts people down. It brings people together, brings people to the table. That and learn the Rebbe Sichos. That's it is what it is.
Now let's just finish off. I want to finish off that this Shabbos is Parshas Bamidbar, and the Rebbe asked that Shabbos Bamidbar and Shabbos Mevarchim Sivan, and obviously the Shabbos before Shavuos, and I believe it was the same Kriyas as this year, the same setup. The Rebbe said it should be a Shabbos Achdus. So first of all, obviously encouraging everybody Achdus within family, but still, come on, it's a Shabbos, have a Zoom Farbrengen with Chavedim. But also, like you said, Achdus through Torah. I strongly encourage anybody who's watching this who hasn't officially adopted Project Likkutei Sichos as Achlata to take it. Like you said, the greatest Achdus is in Torah. When we sing together, and yes, we're brothers, Baruch Hashem, and not every time we sit and talk together is at Torah. But there's no question that after over an hour of sitting in the Torah, after an hour of sitting and discussing,
I'm just thinking to post the last 3 days of WhatsApp chat just to show everyone how much Torah is.
But the fact is, I feel closer to you because we just spent an hour talking Torah. If we just spent talking family dynamics or business or whatever, even technical things of Avtzon.
You're saying discussing family dynamics wouldn't bring people closer. It's a skula for Torah. You can't go wrong.
So l'chaim to family dynamics. I think there's a lot of family dynamics going on with families locked down. So all the family dynamics should be. Lemishpachoisam, as this week's parasha says.
Actually, I think it's very nice to see so many of these different things of brothers and sisters and cousins and doing all kinds of meetings and I'm saying part of this thing, this distance that brings this closeness, this alpayim amma that brings people together.
So Chaim Shmuly, and thanks for joining. I think it was an incredible time together. I very much enjoyed it. Hope the listeners enjoyed it. Came something out. Amen. Amen.